Hey everybody, it's Lester Martin again from Starburst Academy, and let's go ahead and push on to lab number 4 and our workshop focused on doing data pipelining with dbt Cloud and Starburst Galaxy. Now this is going to be an exciting module. Why? Because I said the code word model. We're actually going to get into dbt Cloud now, and we're going to introduce concepts like models and tests and other things and jobs and lineage and everything. So we're going to build out our structure zone that we talked about in the intro video. And from there, we'll, in that structure zone, we're going to build out models, structure tables, structure zone tables for those 3 entities we saw in the land zone, the customers, the orders, and the payment. So make sure it all looks good, make sure it all builds, make sure it all works and runs into Starburst Galaxy. So let's jump on into it. It's a little bit longer video, a little bit longer lab than the previous ones. First one is up, is get back into the IDE. Good news is the IDE, we're already, if I can find the right one, because that's not what I'm looking for. Here we go. We're already back where we want to be. So if you logged out, chances are when you get logged back in, you'll be right here. And it says go ahead and start developing in the IDE. Now let me scoot all this over a little bit again, best I can, and scoot this over here best I can. I think that's about as far as I'm going to the left. So it's all spinning up here. And once it spins up, it's probably going to say, show me around, no thanks. Do what you want to. I'm just going to say no thanks. I'll explore on my own because I have all these notes to help us. I'll close all these little tool tips and stuff. Meant to say no thanks to that. All right, so we're in here and we want to initialize a project. So we're in this screen here and it says initialize a project in the upper left. It's going to build out some standard folders, some example models, all that kind of good stuff. And when it comes back, we want to go ahead and say commit and sync. So it dropped a bunch of information. So we're going to hit commit and sync. And it'll ask us to put some kind of meaningful message. Have a little fun from the other labs. Meaningful message. Commit those changes. All right, commit changes. And we're still back kind of where we were a second ago. We're in a project now, etc. And really what we want to do now is just, we already verified everything works, but let's just make sure this project and the connection we just stood up actually works. So I'm going to grab this select statement. Just open a file. I'm not even going to save this. We're just going to run it. If we click on all that, it should be a previews selection here at the bottom, or a preview button, sorry, right here. Previews, that query above. Give it a little bit of room here to see. Oh, good. It's connecting to Starburst. It's hitting our land zone. Stripe payment. And this is what I was saying. We are using a catalog that's called structure underscore Lester Martin. So number, Lester, Texas, something like that. But we can access whatever accessible data is, whatever data is accessible via Starburst Galaxy. We have to use that 3-part naming convention, but we're off and running. So yes, we can connect. That's good news. All right. So let's create a branch. So we'll hit the create branch button. There's some notes in here that it's a good idea. This is kind of like a feature branch or development off a branch. We'll bring it back in a little bit later. Now the branch name, I don't know if we care. Yeah, sure. We'll call it add customers model as a generic name. Sure. Submit that. Create some branch. And then since we're going to walk you through all these things, and in fact, I'll just try to tell you what a model is here. Somewhere in here, I'm going to tell you what a model is, I guess. If not, I'll find it. But a model is the piece of code that's going to build something. And maybe that's an example way to say it. All right, so he says, let's just delete the example models. Go on the left, expand this models folder here, and there's an example folder, and just, use the ellipses to say, delete that whole folder. Yeah, drop it all, boom. Okay, one less thing to have to deal with and see what happens and count for. All right, so we deleted it. Yes, delete it. Now, a couple other kind of housekeeping things. Let's find a project called DBT Project YAML. Okay, Good news is it's a project was set up by them, by DBT, so they already helped us, they already set it up. And really all I want you to do is make a few changes. Let's change the name, which is here at the top, from my new project to the Jaffle Shop. So name right here, my new project. Let's just make that Jaffle Shop. Goodness gracious, that's good. And scroll on down and update the models section. So blah, 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 toward the bottom, I believe. Yep, at the very bottom. We want to go ahead and reference that project name we just set up there. Models for Jaffle Shop. And you can copy and paste that over there if it's a little bit easier. In fact, I probably should have just done that. So here, I'll copy the whole block. Models downward. I want you to replace the whole config block. Whoa, the whole. What happened there? Let's see. What did I do wrong? Okay, I did something way too adventurous. Yes. Not sure how I got there from here. So let's cancel. Let's see if we can just cancel and save this effort here. I'm going to close it. Hopefully it'll give me a chance. There we go. What I was trying to do is click, 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 click. Control V. There we go. I was trying to do that. Copy over that same information. Models for Jaffle Shop. Materialize the models as tables if they exist. Drop them. We're just going to do it like a kill and fill kind of model. Scorched earth kind of model. And then at the very end of the file, after all that, let's just add a couple more lines. And these are because we're using Starburst and Trino specifically at the end here. So make sure we go all the way to the left. These YAML files do get a little finicky. And there we go. We put in a couple more details about the macro namespace and the search order and so on, so on, so forth. That'll just get us rolling well with Galaxy. So hit save like we suggested. Should look something like you see there. Yep. I'm looking at the far left over here. That looks like what I have. All right, so that's some housekeeping. Let's just get on into a model. Now here's where I wanted to make sure I said something at least. There we go. A model in DBT is a representation, I'm just reading, of a table or view in the overarching data model. And our first DBT model is going to be transforming the landing zones customer table to a same table, a customer's table, in the structured zone. And likely, when we do this, landing zone is the raw as you receive it. Don't mess with it. Structure, you're going to apply a lot of things. Absolutely want to check on data quality. Absolutely, you're probably going to do some kind of standardization, maybe even name, maybe data. So metadata or data is going to get standardized. Likely you do a lot of verification, cleanup, possibly some augmentation, enrichment. Ours is pretty straightforward. We decided, figuratively had decided the data was in really good shape. So really we just need to do some casting, some name conventions and that kind of good stuff to get there. So what does that mean? Let's get going. Hover over the models directory. So let's give ourselves a hover over the models directory, hit the ... and say create a file. Create a file. We're going to name that file struct customers SQL. In fact, that name is going to be the name of the table that we ultimately create. We're going to create a table called struct customers, customers. I think I was calling that customers, and I forgot to call it customers. Up there, easy fix. All right, struct the customers, create that file. And I want you to copy and paste this information here, and we'll talk about it. All right, so what do we have here? We have the SQL needed for this model to build a new record, a new entity, a new table called struct customers. It'll be in the schema called struct Lester Martin. Why? Because this project is aligned to that schema. And what will make it up? As I said, our raw data, which is this Postgres table, Jaffle Shop customers, all that, it's pretty good stuff. It's in good shape. we're going to get rid of some things. We don't need a big, long Jaffle Shop customers. We're just going to call the table customers. And for giggles, just to make it really clear, I made a decision that the structured tables will have the word struck up in front of them, like to imply structured table. Probably not a good practice, but a good one for us to kind of see it. And this data only had 3 columns. We decided it had a high degree of integrity, so we're not doing any further checking, really. And really, the names followed our convention, except for the IDs. Our convention, we decided we want to put the kind of like the singular name with a plural table with a underbar ID, and we see those as integers instead of varchars. So there we go. We've created that. And that's what all these nodes are kind of telling you. You're welcome to read that. I'm going to hit the save button. We saved it. Now we want to run this thing. What does that mean? It means the best thing we can do is we don't run the whole project at this point. We'll just go down in the lower corner and we'll type dbt run. We'll tell it, hey, run this project. And at a minimum, all we really have is one model. So it's kicking this one model off for us. Kind of even toggle and look at it if we really wanted to. But we'll just let it kind of do its thing here. And it is finished. Says dbt run successful. So what does that mean? What does it mean that it was successful? Well, let's just say it says toggle this to go back to view. To really see if it's successful, the easiest thing to do is transition over to Starburst Galaxy again. And in Starburst Galaxy, what do we want to do? We want to go to, it should say, return to the Galaxy UI, look at the catalog, and explain. Okay, we're looking in the query editor, and basically find in the dbt quick start, it'll say expand, collapse the quick start catalog and reopen it to see our new schema. Okay, there's our new schema. I just opened it up. Member structure, Luster, Mart, XYZ, 789, so on and so forth. There's a reason I'm using these cryptic names. We're all using a shared place, and we needed a different name for everybody because it's going to build some stuff behind the scenes. Okay. All right, so we did that. Really what we want to see is what is in there. Well, there is a table called struct customers, and that struct customers is the output of the model called struct customers SQL. There we go, and those are the fields, the name, customer ID instead of ID, and integer instead of whatever, and we can just run that to make sure, it looks like it has the data that we're talking about. It sure does. Now, I'll say just some more soapbox. I gave you a little bit of soapbox already here. I'll go before I probably mention it somewhere else, but I'll just say this customer could be more elaborate. Assume it had some kind of address. Absolutely, if it had address, we want to clean it up and standardize and validate it and all that stuff. And then the address might have something like a postal code. And we might have some additional information that's postal code related, maybe such as a wealth indicator or an average income. That's information here in the U.S. that the IRS and others put out. So we could have that kind of information. We could enrich our customers here with some joins to pull in that kind of estimated yearly monies and that kind of good stuff. We did not, but if we did do it, if we could do it, because we had enough data to do all that, that would all be part of this SQL statement. So we get it a little bit more richer and a little bit more elaborate. And in fact, when we talk about lineage in a bit, you'll see I'll kind of reference that again, how that would be a little bit more exciting. But for us, we want to keep moving. We want to get a lab done today, not tomorrow. So we'll keep it pretty darn simple. That's all we had to do to build that entity. The notes kind of tell us in the lab that if we could look in AWS, we could actually go find that table. There's the structure schema name. There's the table name for struct customers. Has a long name like that. That's the iceberg convention that it does that. Underneath a subfolder of data, again, iceberg convention, there is a parquet file, real small file. We don't have a lot of data here. We're just trying to see all these pieces move together. All right, so that was pretty good. And really what we need to do now is come back over here into DBT, and let's do it again. Let's create a struct order SQL. All right, so let's create another model. This one will go a little faster. Struct orders.SQL. And what are we doing? We're defining some SQL statements that a SQL statement, a long one, could have CTEs and all kinds of fancy stuff. Again, ours is straightforward. This one, the main thing we're doing is do a lot of casting to kind of fit the conventions that our imaginary organization has agreed on for our structure zone, and names as well. So ID, we don't like just a simple ID name. We want to be a little bit more descriptive. You can argue, is that a good idea or not, for another day. All right, so we got all that. We'll save him. And why don't we go ahead and run it again? dbt run. Now this time we actually should see two things that get done: struct customers and struct orders. We're running the whole thing again. I'll show you when we build the third one how you can just run one of those if that's what you wanted to. So we got a running history of ones we've previously done. Here's our new ones on the right. And if both finished like they should have, it just did, successful, all we're going to do is we're going to jump over. Well, I guess I can go ahead and tell you how to do this one. You could run just one. So back in that command, you can say dbt run -- select, and then the one particular model that you want to do is there. So I'm going to kick that off, and if you look closely, as I look in this, there we go. It's only going to build one entity struct orders. Ultimately, it's probably going to say go look. Yep. Go verify that struct orders makes it. There, it finished here. Let's make sure it is in our good friend Starburst Galaxy, which should be right behind here. Guess I minimized him. There he is. So I'm just going to open and close that schema one more time. Yep, there it is, struct orders. And I'll just verify with a quick select that good looking data is in there, the right kind of data. Yep, that looks right to me. Okay, and let's create a third one, because remember we had 3 landing zone data sets. We'll keep following that convention that we have been following. So back over here, I'll close that goes down. I'll go create a new file, and I think we'll just call it struct payments, structure payments. Yeah, that looks right. Payments. Yep. Struct payments. Yep. And then the same thing. This one's much like the last one. Well, no, it's a little different. This one actually, whoops, struct payments. Why did that not look pretty? I'm gonna hit save just for giggles. Usually this stuff looks nice and color coded. Let me just look at some of these. Yeah, clearly I did something wrong. Dash is in. No. All right, well, I pulled something in. We'll find out in a minute. It's going to yell at us most likely. Select ID, comma, amount created as from there. All right, I think it's these double quotes that are throwing it here in this editor. So this is the one I wanted to call. I mentioned when we did the data, the schema discovery, the folder actually had a dash in it, so it ended up calling the table stripe dash payments. We want to call it, we don't want dashes in our table names, so struct underbar payments will be the table name. It should be all right. All right, so let's, even though it didn't get color coded, I think we're okay now that I think about it. We'll try to run the whole thing, or it'll blow up and we'll look at it together, which, sometimes things like that happen. It didn't add my third one there, so I'm going to toggle this, and I'm going to try. Oh, here's what happened. I didn't name it. Oops, we didn't name it appropriately. It doesn't have a .SQL at the end. That will make life probably a little bit better. All right, there's the color coding. The dbt run finished, but it didn't have all 3. Kick it off a third time, and hopefully we'll see that it is chewing on 3 models. Absolutely, there's struct payments. As soon as that's finishing, I'm just going to switch over to Starburst Galaxy and make sure that payments table is there. It's actually all done all through. Starburst Galaxy. Open and close the schema. And should have a third one. Struct payments. Absolutely right there. There we go with a whole different name. And we'll do a select. And here's my point about those quotes. This time I can actually get rid of all these double quotes, because Could have got rid of them for all the other ones, but I really wanted to make it because this one had to be there when it had a dash in it. Pretty straightforward stuff. All right, there we go. Looks good. All right, what else could we do? So we're really, to be honest, we've done the brunt of our structure zones creation with 3 very simple models. Again, we didn't join them with lots of stuff. We didn't clean them up. We just did some simple conversions of names and data types and that kind of good stuff, and table name standards that we agreed to and that kind of stuff. So let's go back and do a little bit more since we're here. So we'll go back into our DBT project and let's add some tests and let's add some documentation to those models. How do we do all this good stuff? Well, truth be known, probably the best thing we can do is hopefully it says we're in the models directory. Let's create a new file. We'll call it schema.yaml. And in fact, it doesn't have to be called schema.yaml, but it does have to have a YAML extension. So by convention, you often see people do it this way. So create a file, schema.yml. And in this, I'm going to go ahead and for now, copy and paste all this. And we can walk through it, talk about it. But let's see what we got here. Whoops. Yep, there we go. Copy. Before we go run it, we will briefly talk about it. So we have a schema file that says, hey, I have a list of models. There's each one of the models, struct customers, struct orders, struct payments. And then for each one of those, really what we're calling out is things. I'm calling out 2 things at once here, I guess you can say. I didn't know if I put them both in there, did I? Yep. Calling out a few things. Anywhere I put a description tag, which can be also a little deeper, it doesn't have to be just at the table. I could put it at the columns and that good stuff, but I just put a description at the table names. But these column things, here's our chance to start telling some details. So these are tests. Hey, we want this thing, we'll use a description. We'll just call it the primary key, but the test, we're just want to make sure it's unique and it's not null. And in fact, you see we repurpose that a few other times, unique, not null. And then basically we did some other simple tests. We just kind of build in some referential integrity type checks to things like on the orders table. The orders table, we're going to say, hey, it has a field called customer ID. Shouldn't be empty. And it should reference a value that does exist in the customers table. So these are just tests that we can do post-event, right? We don't usually get those kinds of constraints in our data lake world that are verified and validated by the engines, but we can come back after the fact and take a look and say, are they there? What other tests are in there? Things like this. Maybe we have some field called order status. Maybe here are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types. Great. And so on and so on and so forth. All right, so we built all this. We'll save it. And to run these tests, all we have to do is, if we only want to run the test, we can just simply say dbt. Is it test or tests? dbt test. And we'll kick off another job. And there's the command we're running. You see there's that select one we did earlier. And there we go. It's running 11 tests that we have identified. There's the names, describing them. They all pass. We're all looking real good. You can drill in and kind of get some more details, but for the most part, you're just looking for greens, yellows, and reds. All clean, all successful. That's good. And like you saw with a building, you could do a DBT test and just pick one of those. It says customers, but I think the word should be struck customers. I'll run that and fix that. Struck customers. Yep. And there we go. It says just find the tests for the model of struck customers. Okay, there was 3 in there as well. Plenty of good links here about what additional kinds of tests and examples you can create. Good idea to really investigate that. Just want to give you some links to get it going. I did call out that when you were looking in that YAML file, that anywhere we had description, that was keyword for our docs generator to do something with it. How do you see these docs? DBT docs generate. So let's do that. And everything we do is, it's going to run a command here, command line. So this is currently running. We're waiting for it to finish. Once it finishes, I'm going to look for this little, go back to the main area, and we'll look for this little book icon up in the top left. All right, so he said he finished. We'll close, and this is that book icon. You'll hover it over it. It says View Docs. That's going to open up another tab on your browser, and really what we want to do is drill down. This is the comprehensive, everything it sees. Well, he knows of a project called Jaffle Shop. It knows it has some models, and I guess we can pick on orders, for example. There's some descriptions. This model cleans up order data. Some of these aren't the best descriptions, but there you go. It carried forward the description. Primary key there that we saw earlier kind of shows when, where, why, how it got created. So some of this, can happen. This can happen even without the description tag that we used. Let me make that point. We just did that to plug it. And there are going to be other things that we can do to plug in there. But a lot of it's going to show you the relationships with other things, etc. As long as they're tests for it and so on. All right. That is the end of our meaty build out a set of models in a project that can take some landing data. And remember, our landing data was in Postgres and in the data lake. And we built a new schema in the data lake catalog to store our structured data sets. And what were those structured data sets? They're defined in models. Models are what? SQL statements that will build ultimately that model. And as you saw, ours are very simple and straightforward, but they can be much more elaborate, and in reality, they probably, will be. All right, that's it for this lab. Let's go ahead and wind it down and start up the next one.